Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Now we know for sure that Russia is preparing the strike on the Kharkiv city and also they will try to advance to Sumy again. The representative of the Ukrainian military intelligence Skipsky gave the interview to The Economist about the case. He stated that Russia is getting ready to advance in Kharkivskaya Oblast, Sumskaya Oblast, also eastern side and southern side of Ukraine, well even now we see how Russia advances on the east, for example. He stated that the big attack of the Russian army may start at the end of this month or at the beginning of the next one. So it's not the first time we heard those stories about the possible Russian assault on Kharkiv, for example. Previously, the director of the Ukrainian Intelligence, Davydov, mentioned the same time window. However, he didn't say that Russia would strike Kharkiv or Sumy. He said that Russia would continue their attack in the eastern side of Ukraine and also on the south. If we check out the general information field coming from the mainstream media, you'll see that many of the media sources are telling about this possible case that Russia is getting ready for the possible offensive on Kharkiv. This situation reminds me the events prior the full-scale war had started in Ukraine. Then the same sources were speaking about the possible Russian attack on Ukraine. At the same time, Ukrainian officials were dismissing the information, saying that it's some sort of the politician game. But actually the media sources were correct together with all of the warnings which were coming from our partners. One more reason why this scenario is also possible that Russia thinks that they have enough resources for that strike. A German defense minister Pistorius the last week said that Russia definitely has many more of the vehicles which they put aside just after production, they store them for next possible attacks. Sending mostly outdated machines like T-62 tanks to fight in Ukraine right now. So actually then we see T-55 or T-62 tanks fighting in Ukraine, it doesn't mean that Russia is running out of the modern tanks. No, they even increased the production. Yes, they are struggling now to get a very precise equipment for aiming tools, for example, of the tanks, but China in that case helps them. However, on my personal opinion, Russia doesn't have enough resource to really capture or occupy, for example, Kharkiv city. But they may strike Kharkiv Oblast. For what reason Russia wants to do it? Well, they want to raise the stakes again. Let me explain you the situation. So Russia put in constitution 4 of the oblasts of Ukraine: Kherson Oblast, Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk. Well, if Luhansk Oblast was mostly occupied, but there was part of the territories of Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson Oblasts are still under Ukrainian control, including the main cities of Zaporizhia and Kherson. By putting those regions of the Ukrainian sovereign territory into the Russian constitution, Putin declares that he will fight in Ukraine until those areas are occupied by Russia. However, Russia didn't do the same with Kharkiv Oblast, for example, or Sumy, because they're controlling just a tiny part of the Kharkiv Oblast, this one. So even for the Russian stupid regime, it would be nonsense to declare a referendum on all of that territory controlling this small part. For this reason, they want to raise the stakes. As you see, they were controlling all of this part before and they want to achieve the same goal. So they want to enter Kharkiv Oblast again with new forces. Also, as officials already openly say, it might happen in Sumy region. Russia attacked Sumy Oblast back in 2022, however, they were not able to establish the control over the main city of Sumy and went forward from this region trying to reach Kiev. So if there was no Ukrainian counteroffensive at the end of 2022, Russia would obviously declare a referendum in Kharkiv Oblast because they were controlling a big part of it. Also, again, we have the reports that Russia is preparing some of the forces in Belgorod Oblast, very close to Kharkiv and Sumy regions. So why Russia wants to escalate? Because it's not reaching its goal in Ukraine. Ukraine now tries to solve the issue with Russia using diplomatic ways because it's unable to achieve a military victory on the front lines. We all understand that the resources for Ukraine are not enough, even with the new military support. In the coming months, it will be only enough for defense. So there will be a peace summit in Switzerland that Ukraine coordinated with allies, but Russia is not presented out there. So Ukraine wants to create a coalition of the countries that support Zelensky's peace formula. It means the withdrawal of the Russian forces from all of the Ukrainian territories, including Crimea. Well, we all understand that Russia would never do so. And honestly, there is no any force nowadays which might cause Russia to withdraw the forces, just Ukrainian army, but now it is unable to perform the counteroffensive actions. And Russia urges partners not to take part in conference on Ukraine in Switzerland, mainly because Russia is not presented out there. So really here we're not speaking about some sort of the peace formula or negotiations with Russia. It is some sort of the way to create a new coalition which might press the Russian Federation more with sanctions and other tools, but Russia again is able to resist. It still has its partners in Southeast Asia, in Latin America and Africa. So they can still sell their oil and other goods, well, not only to those allies, but also they continue to sell their resources to Western countries. For this reason, I think that there is no lever available to act hard on Russia nowadays, but it's only for now. Well, probably the only way is to support the Ukrainian army even with more weaponry. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may join my Patreon team. You may check out the link for it in the video description just below or scan the QR code available on the screen. Thank you for your kind support. So if you look from that political perspective, it is understandable that Russia wants to rise the stakes. They do not like the summit in Switzerland and they want to show that they're still capable to occupy the vast parts of Ukraine, more Ukrainian territories. They also want to show that support of Ukraine is just a useless thing because Russia finally will win and occupy the country. By the way, we heard that same rhetorics from the United States politicians, few of them, and also entrepreneurs like Elon Musk. For them, it's easier to give up Ukraine for Russia. They agree with influence of Russia in all of the ex-Soviet republics. As exchange, they think that Russia wouldn't escalate to attack the other countries like Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and others. But even some of the Republicans say that it's not like that Russia is willing to strike other countries. We also heard from Mike Johnson, the Speaker of Congress, who hesitated to support Ukraine before but finally changed his mind. So to conclude this part of the video, Russia has no intention to stop their forces in Ukraine and they want to escalate even more. Their goal is to occupy Ukraine, to put the puppet government in charge in Kiev, or even to annex Ukrainian territories. With that Russian policy and inability of Ukraine to gather enough forces to get the territories back, the war might continue for many more years. From what I see, the only way out for Ukraine to finish the war in its favor is the collapse of the Russian FSB regime. So all of the efforts should be concentrated on that, also the efforts of our allies too, but at this stage they are not willing to get rid of Russia's current regime. We see it clearly. But what else might stop the Russian army in Ukraine? Well, today Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, again said that France doesn't exclude the deployment of its forces in Ukraine. If Russians were to break the front lines, if there were a Ukrainian request, which is not the case today, we would legitimately ask ourselves this question. So Emmanuel Macron still thinks that there should be no any red lines in helping Ukraine. He follows the policy of the strategical uncertainty for Russia and Russia doesn't like it. So potentially there could be a limit for the Russian escalation and France may definitely deploy some of the forces, maybe not even the French forces but the forces of the Foreign Legion of France, which are usually used to fight overseas. And Russia has already started to boil the public opinion. They publish those photos and say, look, Polish and American mercenaries at the border of the Belgorod Oblast ready to strike the Russian territory at any time. The evil Ukrainian regime created many raids on our territory, so we need to create a buffer area for the safety of our citizens. In fact, no buffer area will be created. Russia just wants to occupy more territories and escalate the war. To other news, meanwhile, Ukraine launched one more attack on Berdyansk port city, the occupied Ukrainian territory on the south. Russia has many of the supply hubs out there. The kabooms also were reported in occupied Mariupol. It is hard to say whether it was drone or ATACMS missile, but the result you may see on this picture. The quality is not that good because it is the zoomed in image, which was taken from a very long distance by the local eyewitness. On this video you may see the Russian train, nothing extraordinary, but actually it is the first Russian train which went across the new built railway, which Russia is now building to connect Rostov-on-Don, Melitopol and Crimea. It will be the alternate way for the Russian supplies in case something goes wrong with the Kerch Bridge. But they built just this part of the road so far. This area is still under construction. You may say that Russia already has the alternate route over here and then going down to Melitopol. It is shown here in amber color, yes, but it is very close to the front lines, especially in Vuhledar. That is why the idea for Russia many times was to occupy Vuhledar as soon as possible. However, they already lost their thousands of soldiers. Ukraine is able to strike the supply road for the Russian army from Vuhledar using the standard artillery. And still Russia needs at least 1 more year to build the next part of the railway. Right, finally we have the new satellite images showing the destruction of the Russian air defense systems in Jankoy airfield. It was the recent strike. This is the cloud shadow, don't put attention on that, but there we have some of the black dots on the ground, and here is one system being destroyed. We may see it over here. So Russia continued to lose their air defense systems, as well as today they lost one in Belgorod Oblast, so Ukrainian special forces attacked one of the units using that drone. It wasn't a decoy, as you may see. There are also some of the satellite images showing the consequences of the Ukrainian drone strike on the Russian oil facility in Smolensk. So it was before and it is right now. Judging on those images, Russia lost 2 of the oil storages completely with all of the oil tanks. Right, Russia constructed more of the turtle tanks. They even moved them for attack. It happened near Ivanovske, Bakhmut direction. For now, Russia uses those tanks, by the way, only in that particular place. It seems like the local Russian battalion decided to modernize Russian tanks in that way. With the tanks, Russia also continued to use the China-made golf carts for attacks. And still Russia has many more losses compared to Ukraine. For the last 4 days, Russia lost 217 of the vehicles, Ukraine 65. And now let's go to the latest military map update. We have the change in Ocheretine again. For today, the advancement of the Russian army wasn't that big as it happened yesterday, for example. So yesterday and today, Russia went closer to Arkhangelsk, and also the gray area expanded to the north from this side. In the coming days, Russia will occupy Arkhangelsk and will advance towards this area to reach this water obstacle. The good thing that near Novoalexandrivka there was no Russian movement towards that village. Plus, Russia didn't go to Sokol village on the south. Well, I think that the pace of the Russian army attack will slow down gradually. First of all, because of the war obstacles, and also because Ukraine still has defense lines in this place. Yeah, those are not really robust as we see, but nevertheless, it might help to slow down the Russian army or even halt them. We're gonna see it. The problem for the Russian army is that they expanded their supply lines to Ocheretine, for example, plus Ukraine tries to strike the Russian supplies, their Ural and Kamaz tracks. So I predict that Russia will not be that successful in the region as they are right now. Plus we know that Ukraine will obtain enough weaponry to resist against those Russian attacks. Alright, what do we have today? The situation in Kislivka. Russia went to the other village already, Kotlarivka, with a side strike. So they have 2 of the assault vectors, one from this side and the other one from this side. If we check out the timeline, it was yesterday and today, so definitely they'll occupy this part too. It is happening in the Kharkiv region. You may see it on this map. My friends, don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are. Have a great time.